December is here, you guys, and yes, it is a season of Santa Claus and jingle bells. But guess what other season is among us? Divorce season. Of course, your favorite, yours truly. I'm going to explain why. Now, I'm not sure if other family law attorneys across the country experience this too, but this is definitely a thing here. For years, consistently, I filed more divorces in December, January, and February more than any other month throughout the year. And here's why. You got your snack? All right, let's get into it. Now, December, that's my New Year's resolution group. All of them want to make sure they don't go into the new year in that bad marriage. Now, January, that's my family-oriented group. They wanted to keep their family together for the holidays, but once January got here, to the curb. Now, February, that's my second, third, and fourth chance group. Now, they consulted way back in December, but they wanted to give their spouse just one more chance to make it right. But it didn't work, so they're here in February. So now that we are all clear that divorce season is among us, if you know you're about to be a part of this group or know somebody who needs to be a part of this group, let me tell you what you should be doing right now. First and foremost, if you are contemplating filing for divorce, you should have been consulted with an attorney. The day that all hell breaks loose is not the day you start to try to gather the information that you need. For instance, did you know there's no separation here in Texas? You do not have to be separated before you file for divorce. What we have here is called the cooling off period. You have to wait 60 days after you file to finalize. And it's because we want to make sure people really want a divorce. You don't want to be mad today and then happy tomorrow and then it's too late. So 60 days is enough time to give people time to cool off and see if this is really what they want. And did you know you actually have to file for divorce under one of our 7 grounds? We have 3 grounds under no fault and 4 grounds under fault. The most common one under no fault is insupportability. The most common one under fault is adultery. Next, you should probably start making a list on what are your non-negotiables? What are some things you're willing to give and take on? For instance, you might say, I'll walk away from the house, but I'm not sharing a penny of my retirement. Being able to articulate to your attorney the things that are important to you versus the things that aren't so important helps us help you. Next, you want to think about how much are you willing to invest fighting for what you want. I have my group that are very amicable. They don't want to spend a lot of money. They don't want to ruffle too many feathers. They want to get in and get out. Then I have my middle group. They're willing to fight for what they want, but this is my mediation group. They want to mediate and settle this after maybe a little bit of a tussle. And then I have my other group who want to fight to the death. It's important to know which kind of fighter you are. Next, it is time to start gathering your financial documents if finances is going to be a thing in your divorce, no matter if it's going to be over retirement or bank accounts or child support or spousal support. Even if you're not the spouse requesting child support or requesting spousal support, you also want to be able to show the court if they asking for too much, like, Judge, I ain't got it. I don't know what she looking for. I ain't got it. Now, if there's a little in your relationship, please take photos. Are there police reports? Are there urgent care visits? Please come with proof. Come with something more than just allegations. And before I let you go, this is not the time to pretend to be parent of the year. I am great at my job, but I am not Houdini. If you are a weekend dad, even though you live in the same household with your kids, but you only interact with them on Saturdays and Sundays, don't ask me for full custody. Stop. If you are a subpar mama, but you think you're about to get more rights than him because you happen to be a woman, think again. And see, you don't want to play them kind of games with an attorney like me because I'm a trickster. See, a couple weeks ago, I had a hearing. Somebody was asking for full custody. It was almost Thanksgiving. And I was like, okay, you want full custody? Holidays coming up. Let's say y'all about grandma. It's Thanksgiving. Are you going to let the child have a slice of pecan pie before dinner or after? They're like, oh, of course, only pecan pie after dinner, never before. And I was like, that's interesting because your child has a nut allergy. Literally, we could end up at a funeral giving custody to you. Last but not least, men and women, get a therapist. There is nothing wrong with going to therapy. Trust me, it makes your attorney's job a lot easier when we can focus on the task at hand and we're not like trying to coach you through the emotional part of this. Let us do our part. Let the therapist do that.
My friends, and welcome back to another session with the older man. Today, my friends, I'm going to talk to you about a concept that I have had in my head for about, 22 years. Since my last divorce, actually, I've had this concept in my head about marriage. And it's simply this. Marriage should be a 10-year renewable contract. And hear me out. Hear me out on this, okay? The idea that marriage is the only contract that we enter into where there is a lifetime commitment is not the best contract to enter into. Because unfortunately, with the 55, and I think it's now up to 65% divorce rate, it shows that it's not working. There's something wrong with it. There is a problem with marriage. So because I'm a critical thinking guy, I always ask myself, well, what are the alternatives and how can we fix it? These are the first things that come into my head. Now, we know one thing that can be done is we could change the divorce laws in America, which would then sweep across the entire globe. Just like, I think, what country was it? Was it Kenya that changed their marriage laws or divorce laws to make sure that it's more equitable for both parties, where the woman would not be taking everything from the man?
In January 2023, Kenya's Supreme Court ruled that divorcing couples aren't automatically entitled to equal shares of matrimonial property. Instead, each spouse must prove their individual contributions to the marriage. This decision emphasizes fairness over a fixed 50-50 split.
Thank you. Yes, Kenya. I did a video on this before as well, but you know, doing one video a day, that's 365 videos a year. Sometimes the brain just go, okay, when was it, what country, etc. Okay, but yeah, so unless the divorce laws changes in the West, marriage is not a good deal for men. Definitely not for men. But that's not the biggest problem. The biggest issue is that most women get tired of marriages. Their so-called happiness seems to wane very quickly in marriages. More women these days are leaving marriages because they're not happy.
You're the one initiating divorce, but you feel guilty as hell because he's a good guy. There isn't any big reason. He didn't cheat on you. He didn't steal from you. He's not beating you. He's a good guy, and you feel like shit because you know you need to divorce. You know you're not happy, and it's the right thing. But yeah, it's keeping you from actually pulling the trigger because you feel so guilty. I want to talk about this again. I talk about this a lot, and I just feel as though I need to keep reinforcing this message because I know that you need to hear this. You are not doing anything wrong by asking for a divorce. You are not doing anything wrong by saying, my happiness lies in a different path. But what you are doing is you are doing the right thing. You know, Brene Brown says, clear is kind. And if you stay because you feel guilty, you are not being clear and you are not being kind. Not only are you robbing yourself of a chance at happiness, but you're robbing him at his chance for happiness too. Because by staying, even though you want to leave, you are misleading him and you're keeping him from finding the happy, healthy relationship that he deserves as well. So don't kid yourself that by staying, you're doing the kind thing because you're in your heart, you're not there.
They're married to good men. So many of them will tell you, I'm married to a good man, but I divorced him. There's just tons of videos up there on TikTok. A lot of men are just left bewildered going, what the hell did I do? I didn't do anything. I did everything that she wanted me to do. I did everything that society wants me to do. I work hard. I build my house. I build my family. And a woman will rip that apart because she's not happy. And it usually occurs within the 10-15-year mark.
We talk about how hard it is to leave the good guy. When you say, I want a divorce, and he's like, no, I want to work this out. Everything's going to be fine. You know, we can get through this. And he's so encouraging and everything's just so fucking peachy keen, right? We talk about how I'm manipulated into staying because he's a good guy. He does nothing wrong. Like, the only thing he's guilty of is being lazy and, you know, not putting in effort like we did when we were in the beginning of our relationship, like any other marriage. He doesn't beat me, he doesn't do anything, he doesn't take money from me, but he downplays my emotions.
Of course, it could go up to the 20-25-year mark and over. But she's been influenced by a lot of different outside sources. So, using my critical thinking skills, I came up with this whole concept of a renewable marriage contract. All right? And that's what we're going to go through today. But first and foremost, listen, guys, subscribe, please. Join our membership site so that you can also have long and prosperous conversations about these particular issues as well in a much more private but in-depth arena. But also, a gentleman sent me a video yesterday because I want to show you guys that there are people who are working this content creators toolkit and doing it. So I want to introduce you guys to my brother, Victor.
My name is Victor Imhans. I am immensely grateful to share a very special message with you today. My new book, Love, Marriage, and Divorce, Navigating the Journey, is now on Amazon. This book is a combination of heartfelt interviews with over 1,000 couples from many, many countries who has been married from 1 month to nearly 50 years, plus my own experiences of being married and the lessons I learned from being divorced. This book shares trails of wisdom for others in this journey to strengthen their own relationship. I have been listening to Paul Acon's content for a very long time now. I did a few consultations with him because I have been dragging my feet for so long, and I must say, it would have not been possible to put out this work without the remarkable influence of a truly, truly inspiring individual, my dearest friend and mentor, Mr. Paul Acon. Paul has been a guiding light throughout this journey. Paul's wisdom and advice has been instrumental to me personally, and I believe others will share similar stories. Folks, we do not always remember to cherish and acknowledge those who inspire us. Paul, here is your fresh flowers. Smell them. Your impact on men like me and our community is immeasurable, and I'm forever grateful. Take care, my friend, and thank you so much for all your support.
Thank you, brother. No problem, man. I do what I do because I enjoy it immensely. He's a gentleman I've been doing some mentoring courses with. He also bought my content creators toolkit, and he finally got that book out and up on Amazon, and he wanted to thank me for it, and I just thought I would share this video with you guys. I'm also going to put the link to his book on Amazon if you guys want to pick it up. All right. Listen, so many of you have done stuff and courses and YouTube channels, and you want me to, give you a shout out. I can't do everybody's, okay? So please, guys, I can only do a few selected ones every once in a while. So, guys, pick up the Content Creators Toolkit. Get out there. Get your asses in gear and do something different, man, okay? This is a guy that made the move, and thank you so much for sharing that, brother. All right, so listen, let's get into the concept of renewable marriage contracts, all right? This is strictly from my head. There's no backup videos or anything. But I want you guys to understand my train of thought. So the idea of a 10-year renewable marriage contract reframes marriage as a dynamic, evolving partnership rather than a static, lifelong commitment. Please understand that. Because marriages are dynamic. They move. They evolve. The problem is a lot of couples don't move together. Some move apart. This is the problem. And this is one of the reasons why I say having a lifelong contract makes it very difficult or frustrating for one or both parties. Women give up the sex. Men are still sexual. He can't cheat. He is going on the path. She's veered off the path. This is just a small example. She wants to go back on the streets. He can't allow it. She gets upset. He lost his job. She don't like the fact that he's not paying enough money. She sees her friends with bigger houses and nicer cars. She don't have it. She get upset. And we can go on and on with all the problems in marriages. But unfortunately, the majority of them stem from money and sexual activity. Now, the counter argument to this is, so listen, what I've done is I've written here, and I'm going to put this up. If you guys want the PDF of this, I'll give it to you as well. I have done the pros and cons in each every one of my points. All right. These counter arguments, by the way, I asked ChatGPT to give me a counter to the argument that I have made. Okay. So the counter argument or the con is critics might argue that this approach undermines the sanctity of marriage as a lifelong bond. It could be seen as promoting a transactional or temporary mindset, which may erode trust and emotional security in the relationship. I counter to that saying, hey, that's what people are doing now. Everybody looks at a marriage as a transaction. It is a contract. It's a transaction. No one is staying in a marriage that they're not getting anything out of. So what are the motives for this? Expansion. People often take marriages for granted. This is the biggest thing. Assuming it will last forever without active effort. A renewable contract encourages couples to periodically evaluate their relationship, fostering intentional and mutual growth. That is the idea. If you know that your marriage is coming to an end, or this man has absolute and total permission to get out of the marriage, right? Now, there are caveats to this, so stay with me. That woman will work harder on making sure that she does her part in the marriage, and vice versa. If the man still sees value in his wife, he will work hard to keep his wife. Now, the counter argument to that is, some may argue that the pressure of a contract renewal could create unnecessary anxiety or tension. Yes, it should. Couples might feel they are constantly being tested, which could harm emotional intimacy and spontaneity of the relationship. I don't see that happening. Dynamic changes in modern relationship. My argument: modern life is fast-paced with evolving career demands, social expectations, and personal growth. A renewable contract allows couples to adapt to these changes, ensuring their relationship remains relevant and fulfilling. So it sort of expands on the previous point. When one person changes, the other one says, okay, I have to go with my husband, or I have to go along with my partner for the best interest of the marriage. It forces you to do this. The counter argument to that, opponents might say that relationships naturally ebb and flow, and imposing a formal review process could disrupt the organic development of a partnership. It might also discourage couples from working through difficult periods. And I say BS. I think this is the problem that we have now, is that everybody thinks that the other person's going to be there anyway, and they do not work through the problems. She's going to be there. We're married. It's called complacency.
He does nothing wrong. Like, the only thing he's guilty of is being lazy and, not putting in effort like we did when we were in the beginning of our relationship, like any other marriage. He doesn't beat me.
Everybody gets complacent in their marriage. And it's only at the threat of one departing, one of the next partner departing, that is when people actually realize, okay, I need to get my shit together. Now, how do we deal with children? When children are involved, the contract could be extended to provide stability and continuity. In other words, it could be expanded either to a 15 or 18-year contract based on the child. Make sure that you are there for the developing years of the child. When they reach adulthood at 18, then that's a different story. But there must be concession for the child. It's all about the child. Counter-argument to that is, critics might argue that children could still experience instability if the contract is not renewed. Additionally, the idea of a set end date might create a sense of impermanence, which could negatively impact the children's sense of security. Unfortunately, this isn't any different from one day wife gets up and says, I want a divorce, and she tells the kids that she's getting a divorce. What's the difference? Versus this renewable contract is just part and parcel of a relationship where the child knows that, hey, mommy, daddy, you guys are going to get married again, or are we going to separate? Because your contract is coming up, I know. Versus the shock of thinking that the marriage is permanent and then being ripped apart. 6 of one, half a dozen of the next, as far as I'm concerned. Financial clarity in renewable marriage contracts. Here's my impression. Every single marriage gets a prenup. It comes standard with this renewable contract. Gentlemen, you don't do anything different than if you would have gotten married for life. You make sure you have a trust. You make sure that you have everything set up as if you're going into a long-term marriage. It doesn't make any difference if you have significant assets over your wife. But either way, you guys decide that whatever you have going into the marriage is what you own on your own. Whatever you guys build during the marriage and whatever you contribute, just like Kenya, whoever contributes X amount, then that has to be decided, and that should be within the confines of a prenup, okay? So that everything is clear. This ensures both parties are on the same page regarding assets, debt, and financial responsibilities, reducing potential conflicts. Counter-argument to that is some might argue that focusing too much on financial and legal aspects could detract from the emotional and romantic aspects of marriage. It might also create a sense of distrust or over-formalization in the relationships. That's what we need now. That's what we need now in long-term relationships.
Why is it that nobody wants to say the quiet part out loud about marriage? And that's that marriage is a business contract. It's about wealth. It's about financial partnership. For women especially, it's about security. When we say that out loud, you call women gold diggers and say that they should be marrying for love, or that a marriage should be based on love first. However, as soon as you see long-term relationships, couples that been together for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, the conversation is immediately what's going to happen when you guys pass away, or who gets to keep what in case of you guys splitting up, or Social Security, or retirement, or who gets to keep the property. Where's the equity in that house going? I just find it real funny that we just don't label it what it is up front, and then maybe we wouldn't have a lot of these issues, and women would choose a lot better when it comes to choosing a husband.
We need people to focus on that, because a marriage is a legally binding contract. It's not an emotional contract. There's no emotions in contracts. As far as I'm concerned, the emotion is just the bonus, the cream on top. The cake, the stability, is that damn contract that comes back to bite most people when shit goes wrong. And there's a 60% chance that it will.
Facts. Marriage is overwhelmingly unsuccessful. It is way more dangerous than skydiving. The chances of a catastrophic skydiving incident is like 0.0003, and one where you die is 0.00001. It's like very limited, the chances of dying from skydiving. Whereas the chances of divorce, again, 56% divorce rate. How many stay together who are unhappy and they just stay together because they don't give up half their stuff or for religious reasons or whatever? This is a technology with an unbelievably bad failure. Many people's sense of self dies as part of an unhappy marriage. It's not a question of will you die. It's that you're alive and not living your life in a way that's enjoyable, or in a way that's authentic to who you are. And I think a lot of people are doing that as a function of the choice that they made of marriage. And again, I'm not saying don't get married. But what I'm saying is, when someone says, I'm getting married, why is it impolite to say, why? Why? You're about to do something incredibly dangerous that fails so much of the time. Why not just say, why? I'm not saying, why would you do that? It's stupid. I'm saying, why? Because most people's answer doesn't make any sense. First of all, you're not even allowed to ask the question why. If anything, if you don't say, oh my God, that's so great, you have intimacy issues.
Mandatory counseling in renewable contracts. Every single couple has to go through mandatory counseling during the course of your marriage. Mandatory counseling at regular intervals could help couples address conflicts. That means if you want to break your contract before the time expires, you have to go through mandatory counseling, because the judge will not grant you a divorce until you have gone through a series of counseling sessions to be determined to get that divorce before the contract expires. There is no out clause of the contract without this. And it has to show that either one is being physically abused, seriously mentally abused, or some other problem within the marriage that requires it to be dissolved instantly. Mandatory counseling at regular intervals could help couples address conflicts, improve communication, and foster personal and relationship growth. It provides a structured opportunity to work through challenges. Counter-argument. Critics may say that the mandatory counseling could feel intrusive or forced. Yes, everybody feels that counseling is intrusive or forced. No one wants to do counseling. No one wants to be scolded or told that they're wrong or deal with their internal issues. This is the reality of life. So whether it's a temporary contract or a lifelong contract, it's the same thing, man. So if you want to get a divorce instantly, you got to go through counseling. And there should be a cooling off period of about 6 months. Some couples may not respond well to external intervention, and the effectiveness of counseling depends on the willingness of both parties to participate. Yeah, if both parties don't participate, there's no divorce granted. You have to wait out the period of time before you're granted your divorce. Simple. Encouraging commitment in renewable marriages. My argument. Renewable contracts could keep partners engaged and motivated to invest in the relationship. Knowing that the marriage requires periodic renewal could reduce complacency and encourage continuous effort. I discussed this previously, but we didn't touch on the counter-argument. Opponents might argue that true commitment comes from intrinsic motivation, not external structures. A renewable contract could create a sense of conditional commitment where partners stay together out of obligation rather than genuine desire. That is what we need. We need people to stay together out of obligation. There is always a period where you feel that you should not be here. Why the hell am I waking up next to this person again? We've been arguing for 2 weeks. I feel exhausted. I just can't take this person. And you know what happened in the next 2 weeks after that? Oh, I love this little sucker. I love him. I love him. I love her, man. She's my baby. Because our emotions go up and down. That's marriage. The problem with that is that today's modern woman cannot handle the downs. They think that at all times everything should be up. We should be happy all the time. Happy, happy, happy.
If you're not happy, if you fucking know in your soul, in your gut, that you are not with the person that you're meant to be with, leave. I used to feel lonely in my marriage. I felt like I was the only grown-up in the relationship. I lost all interest in intimacy because for me, it's a mental and emotional thing. So if I've lost respect for you, I'm not going to want to sleep with you. And I was in therapy on antidepressants, having anxiety attacks. He wasn't a bad guy, but he wasn't the guy for me.
This is the problem. There is no obligation. So to me, that counter-argument is nil and void. Mutual consent in renewable marriage contracts. It's simple. If the contract now expires, you have to go and get it renewed at the government's office. But both people have to agree on it. Mutual consent. It simplifies the process. If one party don't want to get married again, the marriage is dissolved automatically because it has expired. So this respects the other one's autonomy. Both parties feel that they're free to go now without any stigma. Were you divorced? No. Our contract came to an end. Oh, okay, cool. So you went through the contract. Yeah, I went through the contract. We just decided that, we didn't want to renew it. Instead of having the stigma of a divorced person.
The live got restricted. Long story short, I've been in my feelings because divorce, perfect guy. I do a lot of bits about him. Well, I saw it yesterday on Instagram. He's in a relationship or whatever. Saw a picture of him with a woman half his fucking age, or I just like to think that because she looks definitely like she is. And that's great for him. And I feel horrible inside. So that's what the reality is. That's how we feel when we liked somebody and then we see that they have somebody else and we are still living the dream. Yeah, I'm really feeling shitty and I'm going to put it out through my material today. So stay tuned.
If either party opts out, the marriage ends, simplifying the process and respecting individual autonomy. This approach prioritizes personal happiness and reduces the stigma associated with divorce. Counter-argument. Critics might argue that this approach could lead to impulsive decisions as partners might opt out during temporary challenges rather than working through them. It could also devalue the idea of perseverance in relationships. I cannot see that being an argument simply because you know that your marriage is going to come to an end. You are literally coming up on a timeline. You now have all the time in the world to say, I'm going to work on making it better, or I'm looking forward to getting out. There is no impulsive decision. You know that in 6 months your marriage is going to come to an end. You got 6 months to think about it. Both you and your partners are talking about it a year in advance. So I don't think that's an argument. So in conclusion, a renewable marriage contract offers a modern, flexible approach to relationships, emphasizing intentional communication and mutual growth. It acknowledges the complexities of a modern life while promoting conscious commitment. The counter-argument to that is, while the concept has merit, it may not suit everyone. Traditionalists may argue that lifelong commitment provides a deeper sense of security and meaning, and that a renewable contract could undermine the emotional and spiritual aspects of marriage. And I agree, but we need a solution to the massive amount of divorces, and we need a solution for the massive amount of people who are not getting married. If you guys can come up with a better solution, by all means, I'd love to hear it. But right now, the only thing that we hear is, gentlemen, don't get married. And to be honest, I would never advise a man to get married in this climate to a modern day woman. If she's not traditional in her thinking, if she's not willing to go 50-50 and identify that this is not something that where you're going to be a provider male, see my video from yesterday, then don't do it, gentlemen. And until the divorce laws change, to be honest, there's no advantage, man. I can't see it. I wish I could keep encouraging you guys, but man, the amount of pain I see from men these days who have gone through divorces, it's sickening to see. Whether this approach is viable, depending on the individual values, cultural context, and the specific dynamics of each relationship, what do you think? You let me know. I think we should explore it more. But one thing is for sure, gentlemen, we have to look at how the marriage laws can be changed in America right now. With the Trump presidency, I think this is the optimum time for you all to start looking at pushing your senators, getting laws changed in order for the divorce laws to change. And ladies, you shouldn't fight it, because unless you want men to marry you and contribute to your well-being, you have to support men on this, because men are saying it's definitely not fair. Even women are saying it's not fair. But because it's not to their disadvantage, they don't want to change it. But what they don't realize is that they're losing because they're not getting anything from a man anymore. And the lifestyle that they have is not sustainable in order for them to have long-term financial success, because women are spending way too much money on themselves and their happiness and not investing their money, having kids out of wedlock. And like I said, the federal government is shutting down a lot of programs that are going to affect women. So all I'm saying, it's to your advantage, ladies, to work with men, get the laws changed so you can have success at being with a man, sharing life, sharing expenses, and move it forward, instead of thinking that you don't need a man, and then when you hit your late 50s, you realize how freaking lonely and broke you are. Because that's what's happening to the average woman. You see, all you guys see is those top 10% of women who are flexing about how great they're doing with their amazing careers. But 90% of you are in deep shit because you never shared expenses with a man over the course of time. I'm trying to find solutions, my friend. Let me know. Share this video, please, with others so that, this message can get out, because I don't see any other solution. All right? So, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up there. Until next time, remember, whenever in doubt, always, always ask an older man. Okay? I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.